From the studio of WTAP Plus, you're watching Women of the MOV with host Phyllis Smith.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Women of the MOV. I am with Whitney Price today. Whitney, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, so can you tell us a little bit more about your organization and your work with autism?
Sure. Our organization is called Unpuzzled Parents Connect, and initially we started out as a support group out of Pleasants County. And we have grown quite a bit. And we have been an official nonprofit almost for 2 years now. And we connect families with different resources throughout the state, emotional connection and support through our support groups, knowledge is power, advocacy, and neurodiverse training programs and workshops. We have a men's group. We do classroom kits for inclusion in the schools. And we just try to be an all-around support for the families.
And you were inspired to do this because your son has autism?
Yes, my son Connor, he was diagnosed at the age of 2, and he is almost 8 now.
Wow. And so how was starting a nonprofit? Like, how does one go about starting a nonprofit?
Oh, starting the nonprofit was a lot of passion, and you know, we started, like I said, as a small support group out of Pleasants County at the ABA center that my son was attending at the time. And the reason that we started that support group was because he was given a spot on West Virginia's waiver program. And we were incredibly blessed because that allowed us to have Medicaid. And when we received that, that alleviated so many of the financial burdens that we had, that we wanted to share it with the other families that we were getting to know at his ABA center. So we set up just a support meeting. We called it a support group, but we didn't really know anything a whole lot about the waiver program, but we wanted to let other families know about it in case they would have children that would qualify. And organically, we just grew and grew so much because the Mid-Ohio Valley really didn't have a whole lot for autism. And we were new in the world of autism. Our son's diagnosis happened at the age of 2 through the Birth to 3 program. And we were in the peak of the pandemic. So everything was still so incredibly new for us. We were on so many wait lists and still trying to find our way through the journey. And our little boy was completely nonverbal at the time. So just the whole world was a little bit complicated. But once we were given that spot on the waiver program, we thought, okay, we have to share this with more families. And we created a small private group on Facebook at the time. And we would just share different resources or different provider names or different therapies that we were starting to try, even down to toys that we were buying that people like to have. So, I mean, we shared any bit of knowledge that we had with each other, and just month by month, we continued to grow. So at the time, I was working in the auto industry at Matheny Ford, and I had been in the auto business for 17 years, but as we grew and grew, I decided this was more of a passion, and we decided to take the leap into the nonprofit world. So I'm glad that we did. It was a heck of a journey. It's a lot of building. There's a building phase of going through trying to figure out what programs you want to have, what the need is for the community, and just letting people know that we're here to support and love you and kind of walk you through every step of your journey.
And how did you come up with the name?
Unpuzzled came about because we wanted to make sure that, one, that we had the connections. The emotional support piece is so important throughout this journey. You go through a lot of grief and isolation, and the puzzle piece is also a national symbol for autism, or one of the national symbols, and we didn't want it to be called puzzled parents. We wanted to make sure that they were unpuzzled and not puzzled parents. So we had a little fun with it, and somehow we came up with Unpuzzled Parents.
And what have you learned in this time, 2 years that you've been doing Unpuzzled Parents? Mm-hmm. What have you learned in that time, or has there been any particular moment that was particularly rewarding?
Oh, I feel like every day is rewarding, but every single event that we do really just creates that, just a new emotion. I mean, there's so many new families that come, whether it's a kids event or a family event that we're doing for the parents. Maybe it's a training, maybe it's steps for inclusion that we had last year at Marietta College track and field. I don't know. It's just been an amazing journey, and there is so much gratitude that comes with the nonprofit. And I think I'm the lucky one that really gets to share in that every single day, because we meet families throughout the entire state and now into Ohio. So it's wonderful that we're on the border, and we do share with the families, not just in West Virginia, but into Ohio. And I mean, we've had different families from across the nation that have attended some of our support group programs or some of our virtual trainings that we offer. So it's been very rewarding.
It sounds like you've branched out quite a bit from the beginning.
Oh, definitely. There's just such a lack of support for the disability community in general, but autism has grown quite a bit over the last several years, and we did not have that type of support in this community, and I think that's why we've grown so much. There are a couple other nonprofits throughout our state that focus on autism, but there was really nothing here that was having the type of support that we had, and I think that's how we've been able to grow so much.
What would you like people to maybe realize about autism that they might not know?
If you've met one child with autism, you've met one child. Autism is such a unique spectrum. It's not linear. There's so many different areas of support needs that an individual could have. My son is higher support, so he needs a lot of help with communication. He needs help with the social and emotional aspects. He needs physical help. I mean, there's so many different stereotypes surrounding autism, but it is a spectrum, and no one that's been diagnosed with autism has ever led an easy and simple life. Even if you were diagnosed with maybe Asperger's or a lower support needs, you still have some type of struggle. And I think it's just really important that we reflect and learn more about all the different areas of the support needs. That was not something that I knew about when we started this journey. I knew about this stereotypical Rain Man and, America's Got Talent, now Love on the Spectrum. And there's a lot of amazing people that have autism that grow up and do some amazing things. Or, you think of Albert Einstein and very intelligent individuals. But we also need to focus on the other side of the spectrum that has higher support needs, like my son. They may not be completely verbal. They may need an AAC device to communicate. And I think the focus needs to be on every area, not just what we see on television.
Right. And so how can parents, if they're needing some support, how can they get connected to your help and resources?
They can reach out through us on so many different ways, either on Facebook, through social media. They can reach out directly on our website, unpuzzledparentsconnect.com. We would love for them to come to our support meetings. We call them Coffee and Connections. We have them monthly. We travel throughout the state, and we are also, of course, in the Mid-Ohio Valley as well.
Great. And so before your son was born, had you had much experience with autism?
None in our family. We joke and say that we were the first generation in our family, but the further we look, I mean, the more that we learned about autism, we realized that we probably weren't. There probably were relatives that we had that were also autistic, and just, we only knew very limited information, and we just knew that stereotypical, the Asperger's, more or less, type of autism, the people that had the hidden talents, the people that would be maybe obsessive compulsive about a certain topic or subject. But we had no idea that there were people that were nonverbal or that would be classified with different levels. There's, when you go through diagnosing, some providers will say level 1, 2, or 3. We had no idea that there would be different levels on that diagnosis scale. So when our son was diagnosed at level 3, we didn't really understand what that was going to mean or what that would look like for his life. And that's the difficult part of this journey, is every child may develop in in different areas at different points in time. The milestone chart might not apply to you, or it may be very delayed, and that's where our journey began. Connor wasn't hitting specific milestones, so there were a few things that, were red flags, and that's how we were able to get into birth to 3. So we were very limited with the knowledge that we had about autism.
Was it difficult to get him diagnosed?
Yes. We were coming from the peak of the pandemic. So we were in our home for 120 days with Connor, just he and I by ourselves, before we were really able to get that diagnosis. But luckily, we were in the Birth to 3 program, so they were able to come to our home once the pandemic allowed that, and then he received his diagnosis. But we have seen people wait for providers for 6 months to a year to get that diagnosis. And part of our mission was connecting with different providers throughout the state and into Ohio that were not, or that didn't have that type of wait list, so that we could tell our members, hey, we can get you an appointment next week if we connect with this provider out of Charleston, Morgantown, Fairmont, Clarksburg. I mean, there's so many different providers that we've developed those relationships with where no one should have to wait that long.
That's wonderful. Are there any things that you've got going on coming up that are exciting?
Yes, we have a color run that will be.
Those are fun.
Yeah, that will be our end of Autism Acceptance Month celebration. It'll be May 2nd coming up at Williamstown Elementary School. And then we also have our second Empowering Families. We will have a national speaker, and that will be on July the 25th. So
wonderful. And is there kind of like any moment where you just were like, wow, what I'm doing is like really making a difference?
I think every day when I talk to different families, whether it's through email, it could be through a Facebook message, and it's usually a Birth to 3 referral or someone that is a newly diagnosed parent, a newly diagnosed child that reaches out, and just being able to kind of comfort them on that level for emotional support is very rewarding, because no one was there for us. And I think it's imperative that they have some type of emotional support connection throughout this journey.
And your son, how do you think he's benefited from you creating this nonprofit?
I think he's been able to benefit with the community that we've created around him. So a lot of people recognize him when we're out, which is amazing, but also the fact that we're building so many different programs surrounded by kids like him. So we're giving them a space to come, feel safe, feel supported. And it's not just for the kids, it's for the entire family. So there's that beautiful ripple effect that happens where everybody's impacted in such a positive way.
I'm sure the parents, too, really appreciate a little support as well.
I think they do. And a lot of our parents become like family to us. And there is something pretty precious about sharing that type of intimate relationship together where you know that there's no judgment. So no matter what type of hard day you may have had with your child, we can speak open and freely and support each other in that way. And I think that means a lot to everyone.
So was there a big learning curve to creating a nonprofit? I know you said you kind of had a background in finance. Did that help you with that?
No.
Oh.
I wish I could say a background in finance helped. You have to have a lot of heart, a lot of passion and drive. And I work more now than I ever have in my entire life. But if not for that passion, this wouldn't have happened. And the beautiful thing about it is when you have that much passion, you have other families that are also passionate about it. So without our parents on our parent advisory board, without our board, executive board and committee, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing. I mean, they really do help me out. There's so much in the nonprofit world, from not just event planning, that's the fun part, but being able to budget, get grants, grant writing, the interviews for the grants. There's so much that's involved. It's a lot, but it's without that passion, it wouldn't be able to happen.
Was there anyone that was able to help guide you, or you just had to learn it all yourself?
Oh, it was a huge learning curve, but I'm very fortunate. Sarah Barton has been a huge mentor for me. She has nonprofit 411. She is a consultant, and she has been a huge help. Shannon Shop from Marietta has been another huge help for me. And so many businesses that have reached out to us that I wasn't connected with before, that maybe had a child on the spectrum or were connected in some way. They have been helpful. All of our volunteers have been incredible. And of course, our board of directors has been really been able to guide me quite a bit. Because I come with the passion, I come with all, the ideas and the fun, but they kind of say, hang on a second, let's make sure we do this the right way. And yeah, it's been amazing, but we're very fortunate that we've had the help that we have.
Yes, that's wonderful. I'm trying to think of anything else that I'd like to ask you. Is there anything you'd like to add that you think I might have overlooked?
I think throughout this journey, people really forget to focus on that grief process. And that's where our counseling and wellness services came in. We went through a pretty big depression when our son was first diagnosed, and grief is something that is more or less of a taboo that people don't want to talk about, especially surrounding mental health in general. No one wants to talk about that they're grieving, that they're sad. Maybe they are completely isolated. And I can tell you that in our first year, we were completely isolated. We didn't talk about it. We didn't have any support from, we didn't live around family. We didn't have friends that had a child like ours. And we just kept ourselves in isolation that first year. And that was such a struggle. And I think if you can find that emotional support, that's going to make all the difference for you and for your family. So I think people really need to connect in some way, whether it's with our group or another group throughout the state, but find your emotional support person so that you're not walking this journey alone.
Now, when you created your group, did you follow like a template maybe from another state, or did you kind of just come up with it on your own?
We really are guided by the families that are in our organization. So we do have a parent advisory board, and we collectively give ideas and we try to execute on them. But no, we kind of took this and ran with it. So all the ideas are very new. Some of them, have worked out great. Some of them we're still learning, and some of them are huge goals for the future. We lead with this vision of world of acceptance, and that's a big goal and vision to have. So how do we create it? So that's where these programs of impact program, like we're training the officers. We've partnered with Marshall University to train the officers out of Marietta, Ohio. That's impact. We're partnering with schools throughout the state to get them the classroom kits for inclusion so that they know how to bring up the topic of kindness, inclusion, autism, and differences. So that is the impact that we want to create. We go into different medical facilities and we help train on overcoming insurance rejections. That's something that everybody can benefit from, but it's things that we have seen because of our own experience, and that is what has kind of shaped and developed all of the programs that we now have in the nonprofit.
Yes, I guess the best way to, help is, you actually are going through it, so you understand, so Yeah,
going through the lived experience. And we have so many amazing parents that have children that have already transitioned into adulthood. That helps. You're able to be connected with a mentor that can tell you, oh, this worked for us or this didn't. And then when you have a parent like myself who has a child that's almost 8, I'm able to connect with someone out of a Birth to 3 program and guide them with what helped us. And I think that's the beauty in the whole nonprofit world. You meet so many amazing families that can connect you with the resources that are already so scarce in the state. We're the last in the nation for resources and funding.
Really?
So absolutely. So how do we gain that knowledge? We have to go off of our own resources and our families and those referrals. And those are everything, because you really get to find out the right providers to go with and the right therapies to go with.
Yes, and is your organization helpful with families that maybe think maybe their child does have autism, but they're not sure?
Yes, absolutely. They are welcome to come to any of our events. Sometimes it starts out as a sensory processing disorder, or maybe they think that there's just a few areas that they have concern with. But then they start talking with other families and they realize, okay, maybe the diagnosis or getting a diagnosis is the right direction to go in. And we can get them with a provider that won't make them wait for 6 to 8 months for that appointment. So I think it's helpful just the fact that we have such a broad neurodiverse group and that we do train on so many different topics like autism, ADD, ADHD, dyslexia. So it helps a lot. And then our families find that if they have a child on the spectrum or that is neurodivergent, that they are likely neurodivergent. I received my diagnosis at 38 for ADHD and dyslexia. So, I didn't have that knowledge growing up in school. I think it would have been pretty helpful, but that's the same with a lot of our families. So we have been able to connect them with, getting their own diagnosis more or less. So
you learned about your diagnosis kind of through your work with your nonprofit?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. The same psychologist that diagnosed our son is now on our board, and she and I have become very close. And yes.
Wow. I bet that was that a relief for you?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And then, the fact that we are in this position, so we're very blessed that we have met a lot of different providers, teachers, instructors throughout the state. So if I have a question about just about anything, whether it's my child's behavior or a question for another family, I can get the resource pretty quickly. So that's always helpful. But yeah, it does make your journey a little easier because you're able to kind of reflect internally and say, okay, I struggled when I was 5, 6, 7 years old. So maybe he's struggling in a very similar way. And you give yourself a lot more grace, I think, having that knowledge.
Yes. And I was going to ask you, have you learned anything through your activism that really surprised you, either about like autism or the nonprofit space, or just any thing that you've learned along the way that really kind of surprised you?
I think just who you're becoming surprises you more than anything. I would not have said I would be in an advocate role. And there's so many different areas of advocacy. There's patient advocacy, there's self-advocacy, advocacy in the schools for IEPs. Navigating that world is difficult. And that's not something that we have at our disposal. So developing a strong voice takes a lot of time. And I was not a person that would ever do public speaking, that would ever say, oh,
look at you now.
Well, we're getting there, right? But you do, when you develop that type of passion and you know that there's a need, that passion really does turn into an advocate voice. And although I'm not a certified advocate, I couldn't go in and train a school by any means, I can help them navigate in that way. So that's probably been the biggest shock for me, is developing that voice.
Yes, we love to hear a woman's voice, women of the MOV. Well, Whitney, is there anything else you'd like to add before we go?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for having this type of podcast. I think it's empowering, not just for women like myself, but for so many other women that are out there that, are looking to partner together. I think that's how we learn and that's how we grow, and I'm thankful for you.
Yeah, so I'm thankful for you. We were joking before the podcast. I was like, thank you for emailing me, Whitney, because people are always like, no, I don't want to go on the TV. So it was very nice of you, and I'm so
Absolutely.
glad. Thank you for coming by today.
Sure. Thanks for having us.
All right, everyone. That is another Women of the MOV podcast. Thanks for joining us.